All right, we're going to try a little bit tonight. I usually do my podcasting from one of my offices in Springfield, but tonight it's late. I got to be up in a few hours. Work down in some of our shops that we work with down in Arkansas. My shop is an absolute disaster, but I thought I'd hang out with you guys and visit just a little bit this evening. I didn't plan on being out here this late. A lot of times I wait till everybody goes to bed in the house, so I spend some time with them, and then I come out to the shop and work until I get tired. Inevitably, sometimes it's a little bit late, but guys got to do something, and I really enjoy what I do. I still very much work on cars day to day at A1 Custom Car Care, and I love it. But it's not as much as it used to. So this really is kind of my laboratory, if you will. And so you guys might see things on the channel that I'll do here for myself or helping somebody out, or, one of my kids or whatever. And, sometimes I get questioned about it, and that's totally fine. I 100% get it. I have processes and standards at the shop because of a lot of the development that I have learned over the years, and some of the other technicians that we work with every day. But a lot of this stuff, as I've shared with you guys in the past, is developed right here in the shop on my dime, if you will. And the reason that I'm able to do that, I love what I do. I love working on cars. And like I said, I still do it, but it's more in a training environment at my day-to-day job, whether it's at one of the stores in Springfield, Republic, or I work at some shops down in Northwest Arkansas as well. And so when I come to you all, or one of my advisors or managers or whoever, and says, hey, your car needs XYZ, and I realize things are getting really tight. I don't know if a lot of you remember, or maybe some of you are young enough, I got in the business in the early 2000s professionally, and I really remember the squeeze of '08. Now, is that the worst kind of recession that we've ever had? Absolutely not. I understand inflation in the early 80s, and then obviously as you look back, I think it's important to pay attention. What goes up must come down, and really life is cyclical. I don't think that the world's coming to an end or anything like that. So I do think that, as things went up the last 4 or 5 years because of the velocity of money, a lot of us are getting squeezed right now. I talked to a gentleman earlier this week, and he told me his rent was $2,000. That's absolutely incredible. And I promise I'll birdwalk a little bit, but I'll bring this back to a point. That's just incredible. I don't quite understand, to be honest. Doesn't mean I'm not paying attention, but man, that's just crazy. So I get it that, cars themselves are getting ridiculously expensive. We've done many discussions here on the channel. And if you've ever met me or had a discussion with me at one of the shops, I absolutely understand that things are terribly expensive. And I really want to provide value for the hard-earned money. When one of my advisors or me maybe comes and says, hey, it's going to be X amount of dollars for you to get your vehicle fixed, I take that very seriously. And I had some instances this week where, people would go to the local parts house and, say, hey, I can get this part for super cheap, or a lot cheaper than what I'm going to be able to provide it to you for. And I get that. I have, and still do, through my experimentation or testing and evaluation here, I test a lot of those parts. And unfortunately, because of the global, I don't say global economy, global manufacturing would probably be a better way to put it, the quality is horrible. And I can't come to you in good faith and say, hey, we'll put this low grade part on here and save you a few bucks, and know that it's going to fail, and either safety item, fail, which is unacceptable, or potentially maybe coolant overheat, whatever it is. I understand, and I know that I can come to you and say the reason that we use the parts that we use is because they have been tested as much as possible in a real world environment of stuff that I've been driving personally, or one of my family members or my kids or a loved one. And I know what works and doesn't. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there on, you know, Amazon and eBay. I can't tell you how many cars we've either had towed in or driven into the shop running terribly, terribly bad because somebody has elected, and nobody ever tells me this story, by the way. Nobody ever says, hey, I put on, or my neighbor or whoever, family member, put on a set of injectors from eBay. That has happened already several times this year. And so nobody ever tells me that. So either me or one of my techs, which I've got some excellent diagnostic techs, have to figure that out. And time is money. So we have to go through and not only figure out what the new problem is. Typically, there's still the root problem that was trying to be fixed, that the eBay or Amazon injectors were put on there, or wherever, fill in the blank from whatever online retailer. I'm not throwing shade at them. I'm just telling you my experience. So even on, say, some of the chassis parts here. Now, chassis, that's a safety-related item, brakes, safety-related, tires, etc. How is it that I know what works and doesn't work? And when we come to talk to you, hey, I'm not going to put that internet part on, or that sometime discount local parts house part on because it's inferior. It's because I've done it here. It's because I've driven it, or I've made sure and put the miles on it. And I know that, hey, yes, we can get away with that, or no, we absolutely can't. I talk about Dormand here on the channel quite a bit. And really, I've sat down and I've talked to some of the local reps here in Springfield. We have a very large parts retailer based out of Springfield. Unfortunately, Dormand is the only offering on a lot of these parts. In the industry right now, we are experiencing something that really I've never seen before. The last 20 years, I've been able to pretty much call a parts house or the dealer and get parts for it. But there is an intentional squeeze right now to eliminate a lot of parts out there. And I don't want to say it's forcing cars off the road, but it really is. And so we have come up with an exhaustive resource that can either source, you know, a known good. And I really told Dorman that really I'd say it was 2 weeks ago now. I said, look, sometimes it's better for me to go to a used OE part, which is original equipment, versus your new aftermarket part, because it's terrible. Now, does that mean I'm going to order something that I can't get a warranty or return it and just pay pennies on the dollar? No. Even a lot of our used stuff, I have the opportunity to get warranty coverage with it. Now, I'm not a big used parts person. However, I am a big fixing the car person. And so if I've got to go get a used part, well, you know, I'm going to do it from a vendor that I have a relationship with, that if it leaves me stuck somewhere, or I am going to be able to stand behind it. So no, I'm not going to be the bargain basement person, but I'm going to be the person that when you have an issue, you call A1 Custom. You talk to whoever my manager, whoever my service advisor is, and they're going to get you taken care of. Now let's go to the aftermarket world. I know a lot of the aftermarket manufacturers. I've met with their reps. I've traveled to some of their manufacturing facilities that I can get to. I'm not traveling abroad. If that ever comes up, I'll definitely let you guys know, and hopefully I can bring you along. But I'm keeping it real with you guys. The days of being able to get an aftermarket part or a cheap part and fix these $20, $30, $40, $50,000, and that's really on the low end, vehicles, man, they're going by the wayside, or they're gone. And so I don't want to be practicing on your vehicles in the shop. Automotive repair is difficult enough. I want to make sure that when we come to you and say, hey, it's this much money, that we're going to be able to stand behind it. For most of our repairs are a 3-year, 36,000 mile nationwide warranty. Now, what does that mean to you? Well, I can tell you a couple that I've actually had experience with where we are a member of Certified Auto Repair. It's fairly big across the country. I had a master cylinder that I had put on, I want to say it was like a Lincoln LS. It had gone bad. And I want to say they were down in southern Arkansas, I think. Excuse me. And so it had been months gone by. They were able to call the number on the back of my invoice. They sent them, or were already at a certified shop. They paid them directly. They got back on their way without really no fuss, no muss. And I'm really happy that we can do that or offer that. I had another one. It was a couple years actually, and it was a really good shop out in Colorado, and I think it was Aspen Automotive Repair. It's been a few years ago. It was a local customer of mine, but their son, I believe, used it to go to college out there, and we had done a full AC system. They called me, said, hey, this is what's going on. I walked them through the process, got them all taken care of, zero money out of the customer's pocket, talked to the father. I didn't talk to the son. I actually dealt with the shop out there. And really it was just for information on my side. I said, hey, did you see any issue with our workmanship? 2 years really, if there's an issue with a part or installation, typically immediately within the first 30 days is really where I'm going to see, any kind of failure. Once it gets past that, typically that's going to be a good repair for, many, many years. And that's why we offer a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty. Now, if you're local to one of my shops, they're going to have you come back. I want to be able to take care of it. I don't want you to have to go and deal with somebody else, but God forbid you're out somewhere else. I'm assuming it was summertime. I think it was August. Like I said, it's been a couple years back. I happen to have just been the one to pick up the phone there at the shop. So that's kind of some of the value, if you will, that I feel like is important. And that's why we don't go with the cheapest bargain basement parts. And really, that's one of my biggest pet peeves with the parts houses is I think the perception is that all parts are created equal. And I think for quite a bit of the perception is that all mechanics or technicians are created equal. And unfortunately, that's not really my experience personally. I thought that honestly about the medical field, but we've had lots of experience in the medical field with one of my kids over the last 5 years. And there are great doctors out there. There are great nurses out there, and I'm eternally grateful. But there's also some that got C's or D's and went through their training and they passed by the skin of their teeth. And your mileage may vary, but they're not the ones that are going to give you the top-notch service. And that's really, I think, any industry out there, from the automotive field to the medical field to landscaping to whoever. Fill in the blank of a skilled trade, if you will. And forgive me if you think bad of me for comparing automotive technicians to medical doctors. But these cars are really getting very, very complicated. And I truly do love the business. So that's not a gripe at all. I'm not saying I'm a medical doctor or anything like that. But this is challenging, and really making sure that whoever is choosing A, the parts, and B, the installation and the diagnosis, is getting more critical now than it ever has been. When I was a kid, you could open up the hood, you could pretty much tell what was going on under there, where the parts were. Big repairs back then, man, it's just not that way anymore. I mean, I'm doing a used engine installation here, and I'm going to talk about that here a little bit. Like I said, I'm not a big used engine, used transmission, but occasionally that's the right call for whatever the application is. And basically the risk is worth the reward. And again, I don't buy the cheapest garbage out there. I get something that offers a warranty with it. And so if something does go south with it, it may not be a 336, it may be a 90-day, 6-month warranty, whatever, but I'm still going to be there to cover you. And if you choose, and we choose, because that's a two-way discussion, that's not you coming into one of our shops and say, hey, I want a used engine or used transmission. Sometimes the used stuff is more expensive than the reman stuff or the new crate engine stuff. It is crazy. When I was a kid, you could get a used engine for $300 to $500 all day long. This one was $2,500, and I don't mind sharing that with you guys. That's a lot of money for a big gamble of roll of the dice to see whether this is an option. So honestly, for you as a customer, that may not be an option for you. There may be none available. there's some of them out there you couldn't for love nor money find a used engine or transmission differential on things. The cash for clunkers took a lot of that stuff out, as well as a lot of the stuff being made is very disposable. I mean, Hyundai and Kia, I mean, all their engines are failing. Some of the, what is it? The 6L80 transmissions, I wouldn't buy a used one of them. I wouldn't even give you an option for that. What else would be out there in that category? Some of the 6.2 Chevys right now. I mean, they're throwing rods like crazy, and we can fill in the blank, but none of that really matters. I had a couple of things come up in person and then some comments on the channel, which, if you're still with me at 15 minutes, I really enjoy you guys sticking around. I love the comments. 99.99% of them are amazing. I do my level best to answer back as much, if not all, as possible. Very seldom do I let any of them slip through the cracks. It may take me a couple of days, but definitely thank you very much for doing that. But sometimes you'll see things that I do here, again, that I won't do at the shop. So please don't confuse that. I share a lot of what's going on in essentially my R&D department with you guys because I enjoy it. And I think this isn't necessarily a how-to channel. This is a how I'm doing it channel. And I'll try and explain that to the best of my ability. But a couple of things came up. One of them was actually a good friend of mine. He's a big customer. We do a lot of fleet work with him. I don't know if he even watches the channel, but if he does, man, I sure appreciate it. And I try and go the extra mile anytime that he's got something coming in. And so we don't really work on or do a lot of classic car work. Not that I can't do it, it's just really not our business model. And if I do take it on, you're a special customer or friend or client of ours. And so this particular one was a really slick square body Chevy, still carbureted, but I believe it was HEI ignition. And so he'd done a lot for me over the years, and so I wanted to kind of repay the favor. So I wanted to build an exhaust system for him. And I said, hey, if you'll let me, I'd like you to let me take care of the exhaust on it. A1 Custom is a custom exhaust company. That's what we were founded on. That's really the reason I was hired as a young man. I'm not quite as young as I once was, but we had a lot of aging staff, and they were, at some point they were going to want to hang up the wrenches, and they had put in their time. And someday I'm going to be there. I do have a lot of years left before we get there. So I had come out of a 2-year automotive program. I had done some welding and fabrication with the local construction company in Springfield, and I basically showed some interest in learning exhaust. Now, I don't care what anybody tells you, custom exhaust is never going to be learned in a textbook. You can learn some by watching, but you absolutely have to learn by doing. And so it's kind of an uphill climb. I can remember being so frustrated, trying to weld in a really adverse spot. I can remember putting a catalytic converter on a Chevy Blazer, an S10 Blazer, 4.3, four-wheel drive, and I bet I welded on that thing for 3 hours. And the mentor, or whoever was teaching me, had made a poor decision, so he was no longer employed. And so I didn't have anybody to turn to. And I guarantee the weld on top of that converter before I got it plugged up was probably this tall. I'm not proud of it, but I want to keep it real with you guys. So I bet I spent well over 2 hours trying to put that catalytic converter on there. It was after work, or I had started on it at the end of the day, so I'm like 7 o'clock before I get this customer's car fixed. I was burnt everywhere. I was sweating to death. It was August again. Seems like August is a tough month for me, apparently, but I digress. Now I can do one of those, which a lot of those are in the salvage yard, so I haven't done one in years. But because I had done the reps and sets, I bet I can do one in less than 20 minutes. And I love doing them now, but I was so mad and devastated, but I just didn't have the ability to throw in the towel and quit. So I didn't. I just kept at it, and I eventually figured it all out. So back to the square body. So I build, in my opinion, now I'm a little biased, I build a beautiful exhaust system for this truck. And I really said, hey, I get what you're asking for, but I've done a lot of these. I'll change it, but I want to build it my way with the mufflers that I choose. And I'll tell you what, the smile that you see on the face of, you know, anybody that hears this truck, or let alone drives or rides in this truck, you can't help but love the way it sounds. And so I built him a really slick exhaust system, no seams. And maybe I can get him to bring it in and maybe we'll do a video on it. I bet I can do that at some point. But I build it one piece of pipe from the manifold all the way to the muffler, hang both mufflers, true duals of course, and then 2 single pieces of pipe all the way out the back. So no seams. I was able to neck it down at the manifold to 2-inch and then put the collector on there, flare it, and then it immediately bumps to 2 1/4. Beautiful mid pipes back, hang the mufflers, dual symmetrical tailpipes. I mean, mint. Absolutely beautiful. And then I think I did a carburetor rebuild now. We're not a carburetor rebuild shop. So if you've got a carburetor out there, probably not going to be the place that takes care of it for you. Like I said, you got to be somebody for me to step into that realm. I do not like carburetors personally. I'm a fuel injection guy. I love fuel injection. I will probably try and talk you into letting me convert your carburetor to a fast or a Holley EFI sniper system, whatever it is. They've all got a bunch of basically throttle body conversions out there. It's not cheap. I'm not cheap to do it, but I've done some beautiful ones out there. It was a shame I really wasn't doing much video content then, so I didn't record any of them. The next opportunity I get one, I'll let you guys know. But back to this truck. So it's an older truck, and this is really why I don't do restoration work. Because while it was in there, I noticed some other things. It had some leaks. It had some electrical issues. It had quite a bit going on, and I promise I'll kind of land the plane here in a minute. And so what I did is I said, hey, we had an agreement. I said, hey, I wanted to build you exhaust. I wanted to overhaul your carburetor for you. So I did all that. But I said, you have some other things. And so I showed him some electrical. I showed him some leaks. I showed him this, that. Everything that I knew about the vehicle, I wanted him to know about the vehicle. So immediately after, you know, he's driving the truck, and really that's the thing. When you buy a vehicle that's A, been sitting, or B, is that's old, as you first start to drive it, really that first 30 to 90 days is an absolute pain in the rear, because everything that's kind of on the edge breaks. And so you get this fixed and that breaks, and you get this fixed and that breaks, and you get this fixed and it leaks over here, and it makes a noise over there. And so it's just a disaster. Even when I restore a vehicle, and I keep pointing over here because we've got that 14 F-150 that I've done quite a bit of content, diagnostic, cab off, and I actually have stayed up late tonight, and I wanted to kind of hang out with you guys for a little bit, doing the first startup on it. Now, I still have more that I need to do as far as buttoning up, skid plates, test driving, resetting all the adaptives, but I wanted to hear whether this motor was going to run or not. So this one, for example, square body Chevy, fill in the blank with whatever your vehicle is. After it's been neglected or sat for a while or had a catastrophic failure, a lot of times there's things that maybe was working fine and now they're not. A big one typically is brakes. If you're driving it every day, brakes are going to work like a champ. It sits for 3 to 6 months, a year, whatever. A lot of times you go to drive it and you're like, wow, these brakes are terrible. And so now you got to do brake work and you got to do wheel bearing work. And so really the reality and the question was, you know, why I was so adamant in the discussion with him is I wanted him to know what I knew about it. But our agreement was to do the exhaust and to do the carburetor work. As a mechanic, I can probably continue to fix and fix and fix and fix and fix, but it's constantly a balancing act of you as the driver, of what your concerns are. Me as the mechanic is what I'm seeing to address your primary concern, secondary concern, and maintenance. And then third or fourthly, anything that I see that potentially third or fourth is probably not a good place to put it. We'll move this right up next to your primary concern, safety issues that you may not know that's going on with your vehicle. And then anything that potentially is going to cost you a big catastrophic failure and cost you more money down the road. So really the question in the discussion, or that maybe the comment was, hey, you know, as he's having to fix that stuff, he's like, pardon me if that was loud in your ear. He shared with me, we have a very good relationship. Hey, why didn't you fix that stuff? Or it ran through his mind of why I didn't fix it while I was in there. And really the reality of it is it's a constant balancing act of where do I stop? And really on both sides of it, for you as a customer, every time you come in, I don't want to have a catastrophic, huge discussion with you. I do have those discussions with different customers out there, depending on what's going on with their vehicle. But I could nitpick your car to death, and that's just not who I am. That's not who A1 Custom is. We do a digital inspection, which basically allows me to document and share with you at point of checkout or testing process of what's going on in the condition of your vehicle. But really, where do we stop? And basically my discussion is, you know, this is essentially contract labor, if you will. And I'm talking about maybe some controversial topics today that maybe I shouldn't share with you guys, but I think the automotive industry needs to share more of this stuff. If you guys knew sometimes how unbelievably difficult these cars were to fix, I truly think you'd think we didn't charge enough. And there's times where I absolutely take it in the shorts, and you know, we're just trying to break even sometimes. We do okay. I'm not saying that we're poppers or any poppers. I'm not saying we're broke. I can't think of what that old term is. If you can think of it and you're still here at 27 minutes, put it in the comments for me. But my point is, where do we stop? And where do I stop billing and charging? The agreement was to do his exhaust, do his carburetor. I did that. We billed it. He was super happy. Obviously, that's been probably a couple years back now. I rode in it here a few months ago. We went to lunch. Man, awesome. But where do I stop? Do I keep running the bill up? Well, no, that's not who we are. You're going to know what the cost is before you come in to pay us. So that's not a thing. And on this one, I'm putting a used engine in it, and I'm trying to reuse as much parts as possible. I would love to put a brand new engine, brand new hoses, full everything, dress it, do a rebuild. There is a playlist here on the channel of the Danger Ranger build that we did. We pulled out all the stops on that one. And we broke the piggy bank and then some on that one as well. Not every car or every vehicle I can do that, and not everyone is a good fit for you either. That's part of that relationship when I talk about you as a customer, or good communication on your behalf, good communication on our behalf as a technician, as a service advisor, of how it is we get the most value for you out of your second, maybe even first largest investment that you have in 2025. I mean, some of these vehicles are more than homes cost not that long ago. And again, the guy that told me he's paying $2,000 a month for rent, holy smokes. I don't know where he's living, but it better have, I don't know, a pool at least. I just thought that was absolutely incredible. So, I don't know. This is more of a rant or ramble. I don't know. Probably not a rant. I'm in a pretty good mood. Had a really good night. Tunes on, I don't know if you ever get on the playlist where you pick whatever artist and then it just kind of figures out what is kind of fitting to you. But I planned on doing a couple hours out here tonight. We're probably about 4 hours out here now. It's getting close to, it's not quite midnight, but we're knocking on the door. I still got to take a shower, get ready for bed, and I got to be up very early to drive down to Arkansas, and I got a full day of work tomorrow. But it's going to be a better day because we've at least started this engine. I didn't get any knocking, little tapping. That's normal on an engine that's been sitting, or even a reman that has been cranked. I did prime the oil system on this, so it was very minor. Really had a good night out here tonight. I thought I would share it with you guys. I'll probably drop this as an additional podcast. This isn't our normal, but I felt like I should hang out with you guys here at the shop. Don't judge my shop. I will clean it up. Been doing a lot of work and a lot of rebuilds out here lately. This one is for somebody I'm trying to kind of do a solid for, if you will. Put them in a good vehicle and revive a vehicle that essentially somebody was going to discard and just end up getting rid of, that's a super big bummer. I really like and do a lot of Ford work out here. I do a fair amount of General Motors and Asian work. Not a big European guy, so we do some of that, but again, you got to be a special person for me. But appreciate you guys hanging out with me. It's late. I'm going to go fire this truck up one more time, let it run a moment, unhook the battery, just check it over, make sure she's going to be good, and then I am going to call it a night. So if you made it this far, definitely appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I've pushed the podcast out to some other podcast platforms. Again, sorry if that came through on the video. But we got out on Spotify this week, I think iTunes, Apple Podcast. So trying to just share some of what goes on in a modern automotive business and an up-to-date shop. So you guys know that, hey, if you're local, we can take care of you. If you're out there somewhere, I hope you found a shop that shares some of the best practices values. But I guess that's all I got to say. Y'all have a good night. Have a good morning. We'll see you on the next one.